It started with one mistake. Just one. But in Michael's mind, it was enough to ruin everything. He was 31 when it happened. A bad business decision that cost him not only his savings, but also the trust of the people he loved the most, his parents, his best friend, and his partner. He had put all his money into a startup idea without doing proper research. The idea failed, and the fallout didn't stop there. Months later, Michael still couldn't forgive himself. Every morning, he'd wake up with the same sick feeling in his stomach, that heavy cloud of regret pressing down on his chest. His thoughts would scream at him, "You're a failure. You ruined your life. You don't deserve a second chance." He stopped answering calls. He avoided social events. He couldn't look his father in the eye anymore because he imagined the disappointment written all over his face. It wasn't just sadness. He felt depressed. A deep, relentless sense of guilt and shame over a past mistake that he couldn't rewind. He didn't eat much. He stopped working out. Sleep? That was the worst. Every time he closed his eyes, his brain would play a mental movie of everything he did wrong, over and over. And then came the nightmares. Most nights he'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, asking the same question. Why did I mess everything up? But the worst part wasn't the mistake itself. It was the way he treated himself afterward. He didn't realize that his thoughts were not just painful. They were dangerous. They were shaping his emotions, his behaviors, and even his identity. Then one day, while scrolling through YouTube at 3 a.m., something caught his eye. A video titled, "You Are Not Your Mistakes, a CBT Guide to Rewriting Regret." Out of sheer desperation, Michael clicked on it, and that video changed his life. It introduced him to something called cognitive behavioral thinking, or CBT. It wasn't a magic cure. It wasn't a feel-good quote on Instagram. It was a way to take back control of the mind. And that was the start of Michael's journey from regret to recovery. CBT, as he learned, was based on one powerful idea. Your thoughts shape your emotions, and your emotions influence your behavior. That means if you can learn to notice and change the way you think, you can start to feel and act differently, even if your circumstances stay the same. It was hard to believe at first, but the more Michael learned, the more he realized something important. He had been living in a cycle. A thought would pop into his mind. "I'm worthless because I failed." That thought would trigger depression, which made him isolate himself and avoid any new opportunities, which then gave him more time to think, more space to feel guilty, and even more reasons to believe he was stuck forever. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. With CBT, Michael started learning how to break that cycle. Here's how he did it, step by step. First, he began journaling his thoughts. Every time a painful memory or self-critical thought came up, he wrote it down. No filter, no edits, just raw, honest entries like, "I'm a failure. I don't deserve happiness. I'll never be trusted again." Then came the reframing. His therapist helped him ask some powerful questions. Is this thought based on fact or emotion? What evidence do I have that supports or contradicts this thought? What would I say to a friend if they felt this way? One entry read, "I lost money in the business." That was a fact, but the attached thought, "I'll always fail," was a lie his depressed mind had been repeating. Michael learned to challenge that lie. He reminded himself of the other times he'd succeeded, his college graduation, the part-time business he ran during school, the time he helped a friend get out of debt. One by one, he started rewriting the scripts in his mind. "I made a mistake" became "I learned something hard, but valuable." "I don't deserve trust" became "I can earn trust again with time and honesty." CBT also taught him behavioral strategies. Instead of hiding at home, he scheduled small challenges for himself, like calling a friend or going for a walk every morning. These weren't huge wins, but they were proof that he could move forward, step by step. In one of his sessions, His therapist shared a quote by Maya Angelou that stayed with him. "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Michael had punished himself for not knowing better. But now he did know better. And he was learning to do better, not perfectly, but consistently. Research backs up everything Michael was experiencing. A 2017 study published in the journal Cognitive Therapy and Research found that CBT is one of the most effective treatments for depression, especially depression tied to guilt, shame, and past regrets. Another study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry showed that CBT not only reduces symptoms, but also improves long-term outcomes by giving people lifelong tools to manage their minds. One of the most powerful techniques Michael learned was something called thought replacement. Every time he caught himself thinking, "I ruined everything," he practiced replacing it with a new script. "I made a mistake, but I'm not the mistake." He repeated it to himself until it became part of his new truth. He also practiced self-compassion. He learned to treat himself the way he would treat a hurting friend, with kindness, patience, and love. He even wrote a letter to his younger self. It began like this: "Dear Michael, I forgive you. You were doing the best you could. You're allowed to be human, and you're allowed to grow." The letter made him cry, but it also made him feel free for the first time in years. Over time, Michael started rebuilding his life. He started a new job, not a dream job, but a step in the right direction. He began reconnecting with people he'd pushed away. Some relationships were too damaged to fix, but others welcomed him back with surprising warmth. And eventually, Michael began helping others. He started a blog, sharing his story with people struggling with regret and depression. He even joined a local support group where he told his story out loud for the first time. And in that room full of strangers, someone said, "Thank you. I thought I was the only one." Michael's story isn't unique. So many people live trapped in the prison of their past mistakes, believing they're broken beyond repair. But CBT proves that the mind is rewritable, that thoughts can be challenged, that beliefs can evolve, that healing is possible, even after the worst chapters of your life. So if you're watching this and you feel like your mistakes define you, like your depression is the final word, let me tell you something real. You are not your past. You are not your thoughts. You are not broken. You are healing. You are growing. You are rewriting the story of who you are, and the best chapters are still ahead. Because no matter how deep the regret, how dark the night, or how heavy the heart, there is always light to walk toward. There is always another chance. There is always a future worth fighting for. Your mind may be depressed right now, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Take the first step. Breathe. Challenge that thought. Be kind to yourself. And remember, you're not alone. You're just getting started.